Hey there, Vikings fans. You are listening to the Purple People podcast. My name is Kyle West. I got Adam Carlson,
Yo.
Kyle Smith,
Hey, what's going on?
ready to talk Vikings football.
We sure are. And we got kind of a short week on the podcast this week, so we don't have a ton to talk about, but we have enough to fill up a show, so why not, right?
I'm all for it.
This is episode number 157 of the Purple People podcast. This one is titled Team Building a Mystery. I couldn't help but reference the Sarah McLachlan song from 1997. It might not be the Dead Puppies song, but it is definitely one that is still pretty good. Pretty good.
Oh, that is the world's saddest commercial, and if you turn away like I always do, you feel shame. So
You
good on you for that. It's a great. This is a great way to kick this week's show off. If you don't listen to this whole podcast, shame will be falling on you.
That's right. We'll just play the "In the Arms of an Angel."
I was
for you
gonna,
guys.
I was gonna say I'm gonna embed that song in the background of this entire podcast.
Oh, that would be sad. That was 1997, by the way. Almost 20 years ago now.
We're old, getting
We
old.
are. We indeed are. Now, when I signed into today's quick hits, I saw that someone had added one. It says that 7 Vikings out of the 25 positions on Dave Damachek's all NFC North team were Minnesota Vikings. That's pretty good, I think. I mean, out of the 4 teams, you'd think that maybe there'd be 6 or so of each. The fact that the Vikings had 7, not bad. I'm kind of curious how many Bears there were.
I'm gonna pull that up. That's me, and I am gonna jump right in. I'm trying to do it on my phone. I almost pulled it up here now, and you guys would have gotten a loud little kaboom there.
Kaboom.
But yeah, it was your normal people that you would think. There was a couple of good names for our team. Some people that I was surprised by. I know Sharif Floyd made an appearance for the D-line, which is pretty sweet within the division.
He deserves the love he's been getting recently, though.
Obviously, the quarterback of the NFC North is Aaron Rodgers, but the running back is
Right.
Adrian Peterson. And here we are. We got AP at running back. We have no
Nice.
wide receivers, unfortunately. No tight end. Actually, I was kind of surprised they didn't pick Rudy, but it was Martellus Bennett from the Bears. And we have Mr. Sullivan at center, which is awesome. Glad he gets the recognition that he deserves. Flipping down to the defensive side of the ball, 3D tackle selected. Sharif Floyd was one of them. Linebacker, outside linebacker, Anthony Barr. Cornerback, yes, pretty sweet. This is cool that you guys didn't see this yet, too, so I'm kind of going to get you the guessing game going on. Xavier Rhodes for one of the corners. Harrison Smith at safety. And surprise, surprise, the returner for the NFC North would be Cordero Patterson. So
Nice.
not bad. I'm going to try to read back through. Let's see what you said here to kind of make some small talk. Green Bay, so you have Chicago wide receiver. You got Alshon Jeffrey. Martellus Bennett at tight end.
Yep.
Then we have, scrolling down, nobody else on offense. Defense, Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, Green Bay, Minnesota. There are no Chicago Bears on the defensive side of the ball.
I wasn't expecting any, to be honest.
And none on special teams. So it was a pretty, I would say, green and yellow and purple.
Who coaches this
here.
team? If you could pick a coach from our division, who does it?
Everybody's going to murder me, but I can't think of his name from Green Bay. I'm taking him.
Mike McCarthy?
McCarthy.
Yeah.
I knew it was Mike, but I was going to butcher it last. I take Mike McCarthy simply on his prior accolades, but it's a podcast, so we all here are going to support Mike Zimmer all the way because
he's always coaching that Green Bay team to solid records.
It's crazy. And I get it. You have the best quarterback, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You got to give the coach some credit there.
The things that Zimmer's been able to do in one season is amazing. Let him have a couple more seasons like that, and we can start putting him in the discussion. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have heard the story about Charles Johnson trying to buy a Charles Johnson jersey for his dad, but it's been kind of amusing because he has gone to so many shopping centers and places trying to get a Charles Johnson jersey and just has been unable to find one. He actually ended up having to buy a bulk set of Percy Harvin jerseys and take the nameplate off the back of them and put Johnson on the back of them to give to his family and friends.
Wow.
Rather than have to go out and make customized jerseys for everybody.
It's obnoxious.
So with that, Charles Johnson was saying, "What do I got to do to get my jerseys out there?" Mike Wallace told him, "Well, you might have to just go out and have a humongous season this year." And Charles Johnson said, "Well, I guess if that's what I got to do, then that's what I got to do." Oh, you got to love Charles Johnson.
You know, I just wanted to check really quick. I pulled up NFLshop.com because I know they have lots of players available online that you don't usually see in stores, and I thought for sure he'd be on there, but I'll be damned. You can get a Charlie Johnson jersey.
No way.
Yeah, you can get Charlie Johnson. He's not even on sale yet. Usually,
wow.
former players, they chop the price in half. But no,
they get a little discount.
No Charles Johnson. Well, I feel like after this season, you will be able to get a Charles Johnson jersey, right?
I've seen a couple people that have gone overseas to get their Charles Johnson jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand an NFL player not wanting to go the knockoff jersey route. I can see the conflict of interest there.
Couldn't he just go to the Vikings and be like, I want to buy my own jersey?
He did, but he can only get a limited number of them.
Oh, how big of a family does this guy have? Like, how many...
He's
many...
a Johnson. There's Johnsons everywhere.
Like, seriously, though, how many jerseys... How many jerseys does he need? I don't get it.
If I was an NFL player, every one of my relatives would have, like, every version of my jersey.
I'd be like, no.
That's the way it would be.
I'd be like, no, buy your own.
It's your birthday, here's another one of my jerseys.
What number?
Merry Christmas, my jersey.
What number would the Adam Carlson jersey be?
I'd probably have to take the old number 87 jerseys, take Carlson off the back, and put Carlson back on there.
That's awesome.
You don't even gotta modify them. You can get those for dirt cheap now, probably.
That's true. That's very true.
There's like some warehouse where they have like the Indiana Jones, like the Ark of the Covenant, and then like a whole box full of John Carlson.
They have that box
that's
just sitting there with a ton of dust on it for the last year, and they need to get rid of it.
We have Adrian Peterson news, guys.
Hey, it's good news too.
Yep.
Yeah, he went down to Knoxville, Tennessee, played in a charity basketball game down there with a lot of local celebrities down in Tennessee. So cool to see this happening. Good times. I always kind of get a little hesitant because every time during the off season that you hear about a football player having an injury, it's while they were playing a basketball pickup game or something. So it's like, Adrian, I'm glad that you wanted to participate in the charity event with your childhood friend and all this, but I'm also glad that he took it easy and nothing happened. Because it's stuff like that that kind of weirds me out.
Yeah, you're allowed to shoot free throws. That's it.
That's right.
Oh, did you guys see that New Orleans wanted to one-up Adrian Peterson? Their linebacker, Junior Gillette, was apparently fighting with people on the beach involving a belt. And it's like, well, you know what? That guy just one-upped Adrian.
Wow.
I saw a little bit of news on that, but I thought they said it was from a couple of years back, which would totally make sense now. They just dig to find everything on everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was March 25th, 2013.
Yep, I'm not saying that if you do something bad like that, it shouldn't go, unnoticed, but it's a little ridiculous.
Let's be honest, who hasn't chased someone around with a belt, though?
On a beach. Just on a beach with a belt.
That's the only place I chase people with belts.
Yeah, it happens.
Oh, jeez. So, have you guys heard the rumor about Matt Castle being on the roster bubble in Buffalo?
I have.
Apparently, his poor performance in his debut with the team has led a lot of people to think that he might not even make their final roster after Buffalo traded for him this offseason.
Oh, man, we're not going to crap on the Bills because God knows if anybody knows the struggle, it's you guys.
Right.
But I can't say that this isn't funny. I love Matt Castle. I love the time he was here. I love the person he was here. But if you get beat out by E.J. Manuel and Jeff Toole, there is a serious, serious consideration of retirement for you.
I think Matt Caskell is one of those guys that he's reached the point where he should be happy, or no, not happy, but he should be willing to take on a role in a backup position or to be that underdog, that the veteran underdog in a competition against a young player. It reaches that point in your career that sometimes you have to do that if you're not a superstar like Peyton Manning or something like that that plays well into their later years as being a quarterback. And I don't think Matt Castle's quite ready to let go of the reins as being a starting quarterback. I think that's part of his problem, is that he's so set on being a starter, and that's why Minnesota had to kind of get rid of him, because Matt Castle knew, hey, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the man here. I'm not going to be the starter. When you want to start somewhere, you got to go where you can start. You can't just, you know, I don't see Matt Castle rising above a player like Teddy Bridgewater at this point, but I did see him as a favorable opponent against E.J. Manuel.
I totally agree with your point there, man. I totally see him. He's definitely at the age, after so many seasons, he should come in as a Sean Hill and be ready to take on a number 2. But I just didn't see from anything that I've seen with E.J. Manuel, I was not impressed at all. So it's kind of shocking to see, because Matt, in the 2 years he was here, he had some games where he showed some really good flashes that I think they were better than E.J. Manuel. But hey, you know what? I'm sure if he shows the flashes that he had here, he would have no problem giving some competition for the starting job there. But I think you're right, man. I think he should be willing to take on that number 2 role. There's nothing wrong with that. There's backups needed everywhere.
No, and there's plenty of times that backups see the field, especially when you got a player that E.J. Manuel, who's a little bit of a threat on the run too. Those running quarterbacks don't seem to have the kind of durability that a pocket guy does.
And again, we should be thrilled. I say we should be thrilled that we got a 5th round draft choice for a guy that might not even make the team that we traded him to. Prediction: if Buffalo does release him, he will end back up in New England.
I thought you were going to say Minnesota, and I was going to say no way.
Not in Minnesota, New England. They'd pick him back up for another look.
It's very possible. Mm-hmm. It is very possible. Former Minnesota Vikings safety Taylor Mays, which I don't even know if I could say that.
That's a weird statement.
He was on the team for a blip.
Yeah.
But he has signed a deal with the Detroit Lions, which every time you see that kind of after training camp interdivisional players switch, it kind of makes you go, I don't know about that. But I think that Taylor Mays could have a solid chance in a Detroit Lions secondary that could use a little help, could use a little physical play. So maybe Taylor Mays will fit in there well. Still, I wish him luck there.
Wish I knew more about why the Vikings chose to release him when they did, but you know how that goes. We'll never really know the answer for that.
No, we won't. Sadly, will not. Pro Football Focus went through all 32 teams and named their secret superstar from each squad. The one from the Minnesota Vikings was pretty interesting. They chose linebacker Gerald Hodges. Now, Hodges will be put into a positional battle this year against Chad Greenway for the opening linebacker position. And it'll be interesting to see how that works out, because I think that the whole youth and athleticism versus experience and wisdom, that's one fight that I always love to see. I like to see the scrappiness of the young player against the wisdom of the older player. So I'm going to be watching that position battle real close. I'm going to love it.
If it comes down to him and Greenway, who you guys taking? I would take Gerald Hodges just because of the youth. I love Chad. I'm so excited that he get to come back and be a Viking one more season, because I think we all could agree he's probably going to retire after this year.
Yeah.
But who would you take up to this point? Who would you guys take? That's a good, solid competition and question.
It's tough. It's such a tough spot. But the nice thing is that, like you said, with they're only 1 year being back on Greenway, even if Greenway does win the job, it'll probably be Hodges next year.
Mm-hmm.
So Hodges won't be waiting long for his opportunity to be a starter. And if he can keep playing the way that he has been, that one-handed interception last season.
I was just going to ask if that was him. That was a sick play. Wasn't it the first play of the game?
Yeah, just picked it right off. It was unbelievable.
That's fantastic.
And that's the kind of athleticism that Minnesota's been kind of missing out with a thumper like Greenway. It's the little bit of differences like that. Sure, Greenway is going to be a little bit more wise as to where the positioning's going, where the play is going, being able to recognize stuff like that. But it's that athleticism from players like Hodges. And I don't know if you've seen Eric Kendricks, some of the stuff on him this preseason. But apparently he's been all over just making plays at the middle, just athletic play after athletic play from Eric Kendricks. So, I mean, then you got Anthony Barr next to him. This could be a very athletic, dynamic, speedy, fun linebacker group to watch develop in the future.
Mm-hmm. Save what you just said for a little segment later on in the show. Hint.
So Fox 9 will be airing the Minnesota Vikings preseason games this year. Since I live in Michigan, this news is absolutely no good to me as I will be stuck streaming them on my laptop, but I'll still be watching them nonetheless.
Yep, I'll join you there looking for the old streaming site.
Yep. And I'll be on Twitter and people will be talking about a play, then I'll be able to watch it happen.
I get it on the old, I think, Fox 23-2, where I will get to watch it in standard definition, which is always an absolute blast. But at least I do get every preseason game, like, in my market.
There you go.
That's always nice. I really hate, though, the fact that they're in standard definition for some stupid reason. That drives me nuts.
Hey, I'd take what I could get here. They could play it in a Viewmaster here. I'll watch it. I don't know if you guys had Viewmasters, but hey, that's a little tip into my childhood anyway.
I did have a Viewmaster, Adam.
I wish I had included this in the previous hit because it's about a player impressing during OTAs, but apparently Michael Pruitt has been moving up the depth chart at tight end. This is a guy that I thought really highly of coming into the draft. He went further down in the draft than I thought he was going to. I actually love what he can bring to the team in terms of blocking and catching. He's a complete tight end in my opinion. Michael Pruitt is a guy to watch. I firmly believe that he will be on the final day roster. Also, Stephon Diggs has been looking quite good. That's another guy, rookie, that's just been coming out and playing well. Look for him to try to unseat the job for the punt returner, as well as hopefully convince the Vikings to bring 6 wide receivers on the squad. So those are a couple guys on offense to keep your eye on as far as rookies.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we got some new stadium news. This one is a good one for me because I'm looking forward to this. US Bank Stadium will be included in Madden NFL 16.
Woo!
Now, this is 1 year sooner than most people probably thought it would. I didn't think that would be in there until 17, but the fact that they are including the stadium in there this year is something that is already enticing me to buy the game because I want to see the way they represent this. I want to see the way they have the field look. And even though I know that it might not represent the final look as far as what the stadium will actually look like, it'll be kind of cool to be able to play as a Vikings team inside that stadium. So I'm excited about that. I don't know about you guys. I'm assuming you guys aren't gamers, so I'll move on to the next one.
I want to, man. I gave my last system away to some relatives. It's the younger kids, man. You got to let them do it. But I will say this, and I mean this truly. I know some people are gonna be like, "Yeah, right." When I did have an Xbox, I had 2 games, and I'll get the nerdy side of you guys to come out for a second. Madden was always a favorite. I won like 10 Super Bowls with Brett Favre and Adrian Peterson, and Gun, if anybody remembers that old Western game. That was my favorite game ever, but we don't have that anymore. But you know what? Christmas comes every year. Maybe I'll get one just so I can play early in this new awesome stadium.
There you go.
Now,
while we're talking about the stadium, I'll go ahead.
I was going to say, I am eagerly anticipating Fallout 4, and that will take away any time for Madden 16 this year. Like,
Unacceptable.
Just no.
That makes me glad that I could not stand Fallout 3. So.
Oh my god! Stop recording right now and go play some Fallout 3.
No. I'd rather play Barbie Horse Adventures on the Game Boy Advance.
There are some times, Adam, where you have really strange opinions, and that's one of them.
Oh yeah, there's times that your face is strange. What do you think of that? Boom. Anyway, let's get back into the Vikings news. A photographer snuck into U.S. Bank Stadium during the after hours of construction and got some really interesting and great photos of the build of the stadium. But, however, he was there as definitely being a trespasser. He snuck in through a hole in the fence and got the photos. Apparently he lounged around in there, climbed some scaffolding. He got some really awesome photos, but man, breaking laws and doing dangerous stuff in a construction zone, I don't feel good for that guy when his day in court comes, that's for sure. All the photos were posted to an article on Deadspin, so if you're interested in that, go check it out. We posted a link to it on the Purple People podcast page. I feel bad advertising this guy's stuff, even though he was breaking the law, but man, some of those pictures were just too cool not to pass on.
It's just crazy that people still do that now. I'm not going to wreck the guy or anything, but, with IP addresses, if they find the original file and where that came from, there's just so much trouble you get into. But honestly, I got to point a finger at the construction crew. If all you have up is a chain link fence, are you really stopping people from going in? Because there's a lot of equipment in there worth a lot of money.
That's very true.
I'm just saying, I come from a really small redneck town. There used to be a lot of people that would go to these new developments, homes being built, and go late at night and just take all the wood and use it for themselves, resell it, all that stuff. I can imagine all the cool pieces of whatever it takes to build this humongous $billion stadium laying around.
Or it could have been someone vindictive that just wanted to try to tear the place down,
Probably a Packer fan.
Someone could have busted in there and set the place back weeks, maybe months.
That's true. Why are we just saying this now? Why is it? You guys get a security team. What's wrong with you?
It's Minneapolis.
100% agreed.
People from and around will know. Sometimes that's all you gotta say. It's Minneapolis.
$1 billion building and they can't afford Barney Fife to sit there and watch the place?
Nope.
I know. Shoot. Call me up there, man. I'll do it for half the price.
Oh, scary times in that stadium. If something would have happened and they'd have walked in and found some guy splatted on the pavement there.
You guys need to check these pictures out because this guy went pretty high, too. It's pretty awesome.
He did. He climbed way up.
That's actually, honestly, I do photography. That's what I liked about it, is that it wasn't just some dickweed with an iPhone that went in there and took some crappy out-of-focus photos. Like, this guy actually did a really good job with it. So, trespassing aside, like, I good job, photographer guy.
There you go. So let's get into the main topic. We were talking about building a mystery, so let's talk about team building. Mike Zimmer gave a statement about team building that Packer fans didn't really like.
I liked it.
That's so sad.
Yeah, so here's the quote that Mike Zimmer has going on here. It says, "Everybody keeps coming up to me and saying, 'Hey, coach, do you want to have some team building? Are we going to have a team building day?' I said, 'No, we're going to work.' I said, 'We've got a lot of work to do. We need to get better. We're not into the team building thing. In my opinion, you don't get better by playing ping pong. You get better by winning, and that's how we're going to team build. We're going to win.'"
Reason number 8054. I love this man.
Now, in case you're wondering why Green Bay Packer fans had a problem with that, it is because the Packers were recently engaged in a charity ping pong tournament that was used as a part of their OTA time against the Milwaukee Brewers. So Packer fans saw this as sort of a dig, when really it was probably the Vikings players going up to him and saying things like ping pong, ping pong, ping pong to him. And the coach is just like, "Shut up about ping pong. I don't want to hear about it." It was probably just drilled into him, and he probably just let it fly because he's Mike Zimmer. There's very little filter there. But still, I mean, ping pong, Or ping pong or practice, what's going to get you better?
Speaking of, sorry to just go off the side for a second. I'm on Vikings.com. There's a couple videos from the last week. Zimmer says we're going to try and outwork people for the upcoming season, and just posted. Now this is Monday morning, Sunday night for all of you. Wired for Sound posted 41 minutes ago, so Monday morning this will be your video to watch. Wired for Sound, Mr. Mike Zimmer. That is, I have been waiting for one of those, so can't wait to hear what comes out of his mouth there.
He is definitely going to speak his mind every chance he gets, and I like the opportunity that he's taking the time to say, hey, when we are on team time, we are going to do team activities. You want to go play ping pong with your friends from the team? You go ahead and do it. But when you're on my clock, you're doing what I say. And that is one of the most Mike Zimmer things ever.
I mean, the team does sort of do team building activities when you look at like some of the charity work that they do for a team, like going out and building playgrounds and stuff.
Playgrounds.
Yep. Yeah,
sure.
I mean, that qualifies as like a team building activity, but I love his quote the same. It's just a fantastic quote.
I'll say this, and we've all played sports. I know a ton of our listeners played sports. On an amateur level, I wrestled for 6 years. You know, when you do that kind of thing on an amateur level, some days, depending on how, I would say, advanced you are mentally and how mature you are, which, you know, high schoolers usually aren't, you need those days where you just kind of chill out, watch film, and maybe do something fun or like a group activity. But when you're a paid professional, we're not going to go to work today. In my opinion, besides a regular practice during the regular season, these are the most crucial moments. This is when you're going to make those mistakes to learn from them and not do them again. And you don't get that by sitting in a movie theater like some teams get to go out and say, we're going to the movies today. No, go out there and sweat and mess up. And when you mess up, fix it so you don't mess up again. And that's something that Mike Zimmer said before. So I love this quote. I think, and like you said, Adam, that's one of the best things you've said this whole episode. One of the most Mike Zimmer things ever.
There are plenty of exceptions, like when they went for the Jim Kelly golf tournament and things like that. There are plenty of things that, as far as team building activities, that can involve some sort of historic or helpful charitable event, something like that. I'm all for that. But just to take a day off and go watch Jurassic World as a team, no.
They do that in Mankato. I mean, at the end of a week of practice or whatever, the whole team will seriously get together, and there's a theater right by where they go to, and they will buy out the whole theater for a show, and they will all go in and watch whatever big movies are out. I always thought that was kind of cool little factoid.
Yeah, but that's not like on the clock practice time.
Yeah, that's different though than like
I think that's what builds the chemistry outside. Mm-hmm. Somebody will just wrangle everybody up and be like, "Hey, plans tomorrow. Let's go see this movie as a team. I'm buying." Blah blah. Actually, you make the rookies pay for it, but
like we've actually talked about that with the football games and stuff between Bridgewater and Charles Johnson, and some of that kind of stuff that goes on there. There's plenty of stuff going on off the field that these players are coming together and trying to build chemistry as a unit and between each other. There will be plenty of opportunities for that now during the downtime. We already know what Teddy Bridgewater's doing. He's not taking the time off to go watch movies and gallivant around, go to the beach. He's already said that he's going to go do some grinding. Because that's what Teddy does.
Teddy will be playing Madden 16, though. We know that much, right?
Teddy will be playing Madden 16.
Didn't he say that last year? He likes to get virtual reps.
Yeah,
he does.
That's a genius. I love it. That's the best way to say I'm going to play some video games. Now he can do it of himself, which is even better.
You should try that at your job. Just be like, I'm going to get in some virtual reps and see if that's fun.
Strangely, that might work for my job.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
All right, so this week we gave you guys a question that I found personally very interesting. What we did was we asked you guys about how big of a fan you consider some people. because there's some debate as to whether or not, if you don't know the history of the Minnesota Vikings, some of the old players, the division championship, some of the heartbreak games, stuff like that, should those kind of fans be considered as less of fans in the eyes of others? And we got some really interesting answers to this question. One of my favorites was Dylan Lutz, who says a Vikings fan is a Vikings fan if they're rooting for the same cause, for the Vikings to win, even if they don't know the past history on the Vikings. And that's right. I mean, a Vikings fan is a Vikings fan. We got Jamie Sharon here saying you can't measure love, which it's corny, yes, but it's a good point. Just because you don't know everything about the past doesn't mean you can't appreciate the present and stuff like that. Mike Nash says I have this poster in my room. I chose the team picture of the 1969 Vikings, which is my favorite year for the Vikings, by the way. I wasn't alive, but I love the history of that team. The NFL champion 69 Vikings. I chose that one for a reason because there's quite a few star players in there and Bud Grant, but good times right there.
I love this question. I think, did you come up with that, Adam?
I did.
See, this is why he runs everything, everyone. I think if you want to ask the opinion, I think it's broken down into halves. There are the people that get on the internet and troll, and they start arguments, or they add in arguments, and they come out of here with some asinine thing out of left field. If you're going to say something, have the knowledge to back it up. However, when you're sitting there and we're playing San Francisco and there's 19 seconds left, and Brett Favre throws the most miracle pass of any miracle pass there ever was, do you really care if the guy next to you knows who the roster was from 1984? No. You're going to jump up and down and scream and grab him and be like, holy bleep, we are the greatest team ever right now. And I love that. And you know what? The corny line you said earlier, yeah, it's corny, but if you love the Vikings and you truly mean it, and those are the people you'll walk by tailgating. I've done it in Carolina so much at Panther games. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You grab a cold one, knock it up with somebody, and be like, hey, go Panthers. And they just love it. 'Cause, hey, you got that pride. I think if you're willing to just love the team, it doesn't matter what your knowledge is per se. But I will make a hard left turn and say, if you start an argument, get your facts straight, because people like Mr. West and Mr. Carlson will come around and correct you if they are.
I don't know how many of you guys have attended games, but if you do, and you head on down to the Purple Lot, there are so many great Vikings fans. Well, I suppose they don't gather up there anymore since that TCF, but the Vikings fans always gather before the games outside the stadium. And there are so many great people. The VWO, which are a fantastic group of guys, in my opinion, that I've had the chance to meet them and hang out with them. There's plenty of non-VWO guys there, too, that are absolutely cool. And it's all sorts of different kind of fans. You got some casual fans that are, they watch football and they appreciate the games. They like watching, but they're not too hardcore into it. And then you got the guys who are all painted and dressed up and just having a blast, screaming at the top of their lungs. And it's all about just doing what you love. Parker Nakin said, I mean, yeah, it's good and important to know the team's history and its legends. But if you didn't live through it, I don't expect you to know the ins and outs of the Vikings' history to be a true fan. And I think that that's another thing, is the experience. Because sometimes going back and watching some of the big moments in Vikings history just doesn't have the same impact as if you were watching the game live and you got to experience it when it was happening. Dan Herda says, I believe in supporting the teams in your state. Well, I live in Michigan, but I am a Minnesota transplant, and it is weird because Michigan is made up, at least Upper Michigan, where I'm at, is made up mostly of Green Bay Packer fans. And that whole argument would not work up here because of how many Packer fans there are. And I firmly believe, and I hope that very few of the people in my community are listening to this right now, that if the Lions were a more winning team, that the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where I'm at, would be mostly Lions fans. I mean, sure, you got the hardcore Packer fans, but it usually does seem to be whoever is winning, And the gist that I'm getting from most of the people that are replying on here is that any fan is a true fan except a fair weather fan. And even fair weather fans, sure, they're only gonna like the team when they're good and everything. And I admit I'm a bit of a fair weather fan when it comes to the Minnesota Wild and things like that. Yeah, I only really pay attention when they're good, and that's fine. But Rick Jacobson divided the question up into several pieces,
Of
and
course,
if we
it's
got a couple
Rick.
minutes, I'll read this puppy up.
Go for it.
He says, excellent question, and one I've heard several times debated. Being a Vikings fan can literally be broken down into 4 basic groups.
I
Group
haven't
1 would be the
I haven't heard or read this, by the way, so this is all new to me.
Group 1 would be the old school fans. It was far easier for us to remember the players' names because we stayed with one team for all or most of their career. To us, we couldn't care less if anyone considers us a fan or not. Group 2 would be the dreaded fair weather fan, and they don't have a clue unless the Vikings are winning. Again, as with the first group, they don't care how good a fan people consider them. Group 3 would consist of your stat fans, and they're the ones that can pretty much tell you not only who played for the Vikings and when, but every imaginable stat about them as well. Here is the first group that proclaims to be the biggest fans based on the information overload. The final group, Group 4, is your diehard or fanatical fans. These are the folks that you see with painted faces and just about everything they own is purple or Viking related. They also claim to be the biggest fan because of their undying loyalty 24/7, 365. The way I see it, there is not now, nor ever has there been a not as big fan issue. Represent the way you choose after it all. After all, it is still America, I think.
I can't wait to get Rick on for a show. This would be fun.
That's very well said. Where would you guys put yourselves in that?
To me, there are only 2 groups of Vikings fans. Those who listen to the Purple People podcast
Yeah.
and those who don't.
We call those right people and wrong people. We'll let you decide which group is which.
But I really enjoyed this question, and I thought that it was one of the main things because I have plenty of vintage Viking memorabilia in my house. And sometimes I have to explain to people who Bud Grant or maybe even Robert Smith is. And to me, that it kind of makes me wonder a little bit about their level of NFL fandom. But then again, if someone came up to me and asked me about or had some of the old Green Bay Packers coaches and stuff on their wall, I'd probably have some questions about that too. Mm-hmm. So it's all about how much you immerse yourself and what you want to immerse yourself in. If you want to be into the culture of the Vikings, if you want to use it as a social tool, if you want to just be a casual fan, watch the games, and then that's it, have no real emotional attachment, that's fine too. We at the podcast welcome every kind of fan there is, even fair weather fans. If you want to give us a listen when you're feeling up on the team, that's fine. If you don't want to listen when you're feeling a little bit down on the team, that's fine too.
Just tattoo Purple People Pod to your head, and you can be a whatever fan you want. That's fine.
Good times, good times. Next week, we're going to be talking about which position group you are the most comfortable with heading into the 2015 season. I'll be posting this question up on social media, whether it's quarterbacks, running backs, linebackers, the secondary,
missionary,
corners, whatever group that you're liking.
I see what you did there. There you go.
This is a clean show. So
glad someone caught that.
I'm just going to say, if you reference back in the show where I said reference later in the show, you'll have my answer. There's your little riddle for the day. You already mentioned that.
Is this leading into your bold statement?
It is not, actually. This is going to go back on one of our quick hits. We have a guy named Michael Pruitt who keeps impressing, and I've seen some nice little footage montages putting together. And I'm just going to say that
absolutely
he may not be Kyle Rudolph's main competition, but I think he's going to give Chase Ford and Rhett Ellison a hell of a run for their money this year. I love it. What's a great comparison? The New England Patriots. Sure, you have Tom Brady. Sure, you have Bill Belichick. Their core group was never wide receivers for the longest time. It was a tight end set of 2 monstrous tight ends. I would love to see us have that. He's a little bit more of a speedster. I don't know how well he can block. But I like Michael Pruitt, and I see him giving Chase Ford and Rhett Ellison a run for their money. Boom.
Such a fun year to be a Vikings fan. So many young players coming up. And if you've been keeping track of the drafts and watching these guys developed, you've got to almost feel like a proud daddy. And as I say that, I'd like to wish a happy Father's Day since it is at that point, and this show will be out a little bit after Father's Day. But to all you purple dads out there, happy Father's Day. And I hope things went great for you. And to all the purple fathers up in heaven,
Yes.
we respect them too.
I have to give a weird little story before we close it up. So I'm driving home the other day, as if you guys don't already know, for the people that might just be listening for the first time. I'm out in Hampton, Virginia, and we have this college down here that's just now getting recognized. I don't know if they're Division One yet or not. They just became bowl eligible for the first time ever last year. It's called Old Dominion, and
Oh yeah.
they kept telling me this guy's name, and I was like, "Where the heck have I heard this guy's name from?" He's one of our quarterbacks now, and the coach was talking about him, Taylor Heineke.
Oh yeah.
And so funny because they're like, "Well, how do you think he's doing in Minnesota?" He's like, "I've talked to Scott Turner, and it's so funny. They love his dedication to watch film." And they were like, "Yeah, well, a lot of people like to watch film. That's good." He's like, "No, you don't understand. We didn't call plays out here." So he's having to retake a dictionary every time he goes in to read everything down. So I thought that was a pretty funny story because I'm out here in the middle of Eastern Virginia on the coast, and here they are making a Vikings reference on Virginia radio. And I was like, where the hell do I know this guy's name from? I keep hearing it all the time. And we just picked him up, so that's pretty cool.
I like it. I like it. He actually should be one of the guys. I believe he might be the guy that gets stuck on the practice squad this year. Fingers crossed. Just so they got that arm for the practice squad, and just in case, so that he could be a guy that we could hear a lot more of in the future.
Shout out to you, Taylor, all the way from Virginia, where you're from.
That's right. So I hate to let you go, but we at the podcast have to go do some team building.
Yes, I have to do what we call prolonged napping. So.
On that note, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to the Purple People podcast. Head on over to the Facebook page, talk to me and Mr. Smith. Go to Twitter at Purple People Pod. Mr. Kyle West will be there to talk to you. And in the meantime, stay classy, Minnesota.